Welcome to Movies We Like, part of the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network. I'm Andy Nelson, and that over there is Pete Wright.
It is Pete Wright over there.
On today's episode, we have invited cinematographer Mattias Nyberg to talk about Mulholland Drive, a movie he likes. Mattias, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. This is really very exciting.
Well, thrilled to have you, and I definitely want to talk about your career, but I really, before we jump into it and before we talk about Mulholland Drive and everything else, I would love to hear a little bit about your journey from the rink to being behind the camera, because it sounds like quite a journey that we don't often get to hear when we're talking to our guests.
No, maybe slightly unusual. I'm sure there are one or two Canadian DOPs out there that maybe have done a similar journey. But no, so I grew up in very rural Sweden, and there wasn't that much to do around there. It's very rural, and but there was an ice rink, and I was, into ice hockey, so I was quite good at it. It turns out, and then I sort of was aiming for a career, ultimately in the NHL, I suppose.
Sure.
And then stuff happened, not for me personally, but things happened around in the club that made me want to take a pause, and I took that pause with some friends, and we went to London, and we were going to study English for 3 months and then sort of come back and maybe restart the career or figure out what else to do. But then I never really returned.
Oh, okay.
And then from that landing in London, I ended up at a university that turns out they had a sort of a film course. And until that moment, I had never considered any sort of career in film at all.
Wow.
So
okay.
I wasn't one of those kids who grew up like wanting to make films since they were at the age of 8. I grew up reading books, cycling to the video store, and things like that. And I loved film, but I never really understood who did what.
Yeah.
I had no idea what a cinematographer was until I was maybe 21. So it was kind of I was very sort of into literature. At the same time, I was also a jock, which was kind of a contradiction.
What are you doing,
mix,
man?
yeah.
It's a crazy hodgepodge. And since most filmmakers barely know how to read, I think your fascination with literature is interesting. But what I'm really interested in is how were you ever interested in camera? Like, were you a photographer at any point as a kid? Were you interested in making images?
I was, and my dad, who's quite an early adopter, technology-wise, we had a really early VHS high-8 kind of camera, but that wasn't until a bit later. But I loved taking pictures, but I didn't quite understand. I didn't have any training in it, and I didn't have anyone around me that was into it. I just knew I liked it. I loved the cinema. We had a cinema in this village nearby where I grew up. That was the sort of beautiful Art Deco 2-story, with a balcony, but wooden seats. And so I used to cycle down there because there was a movie, once a month or something. And so I used to go to every movie I could that I was allowed to. If it wasn't too mature or something. And I just enjoyed it. I loved the experience, but I didn't quite understand it in terms of that it was a career. It was just more, I loved the storytelling of it. I loved the spectacle of it. So that's how I sort of, but that was just always in the background for me. It was more, I was going to be an ice hockey player, and I was going to, do all this. And then when I got to university studying this English degree, and I met some people who were quite literate in filmmaking. And then I started hanging out with them, and that changed everything for me. I was like, oh, right,
Yeah.
wow.
I
And I
could do
guess,
that.
yes. And weirdly for me, I think the first thing that appealed to me was, and it still appeals to me today, which is why I loved what I'm doing, it's a team sport.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
filmmaking, TV making is a team sport with specialists and leaders and things like that. And I like that team that we found at university, and that's how I fell in love with it, and then kind of retrofitted my sort of attempts at photography that I didn't quite understand. I started to sort of learn how to, and then I suppose retrofitted my love of narrative and literature into that. So that's how I sort of stumbled into the arena with
Yeah.
no real plan, to be honest.
Do
And
you
did you
remember? Was
start?
there like a moment or a particular film that you feel like was that spark? Like you talk about that one class that you took, that one accidental film class, and you're hanging out with film people as your colleagues and friends. Do you remember the moment you said, "Okay, I'm going to make a go of this"?
I don't, if I'm honest, it wasn't until we started making some of these short films and things like
Yeah.
that. And to be honest, the film school I went to wasn't eventually, it wasn't really a film school. It was kind of very low tech.
Mhm.
But there was something around in those days that because Fuji used to do emulsion cinefilm,
Sure.
and they sponsored a national film school competition
Hmm.
every year. It's called a Fuji Film Scholarship. And long story short, my university, my class, we entered, got selected because they only picked 10 out of however many scripts, and I then ended up winning a cinematography prize, which I got from Jack Cardiff, and I was like, okay,
Wow. Great.
Okay.
this
Okay.
is it now, is it?
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah.
I think that was the moment when I shook Jack Cardiff's hand. I was like, I have to make this work. I was like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like the great man's there. We're in a picture
Yeah.
together.
That's
Wow.
So
effectively a promise. That's
yeah,
beautiful. What a
so
fantastic, just point in history that you have that inflection point, the Jack Cardiff handshake.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was just and then from then on, it was sort of it was not like a straight road to success by all any means, but it was kind of, that's how I then realized that, right, I'm going to make a go of this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
but I had no idea how to break into the industry because um but we learnt as we went along.
Well, and breaking into the industry and then just and kind of consistently working from the point that you do, right? And like you've been very busy in all sorts of TV projects, some films, just keeping yourself very busy on a consistent basis with project after project after project. When you're looking for projects, like what is it that draws you to projects? Is it the team that you're going to be working with? Is it the concept and how you're going to get to play with light and image on a particular project? Like what do you look for when you're deciding what's next?
I suppose it's a combination of all those things, and sometimes one factor is heavier than the other. So
Hmm.
if there's a director that I've worked with before and really enjoyed and trust and had a successful collaboration with, it becomes less important initially what they're doing. You kind of go, well, I want to work with you, so let's go. What are you? And then you go, what is it that we're doing? Um, it's not like you sort of blindly follow someone in, but you kind of go, well, I trust you. You've got a good taste. So what are we talking about here?
Hmm.
I mean, but the script, the genre, I suppose I came in via the art scene, I suppose.
Hmm.
And then So I shot lots of installation films for all the big galleries around the world with lots of big
Yeah.
artists and stuff. And then that led to commercial work, and that commercial work ended up being quite comedy based. And then that was my break into TV was via comedy.
Gotcha.
And initially, after, once you shot comedy for a while, you sort of then go, well, I don't want to do any more comedy because I don't want to be the comedy guy. And over in the UK, it's kind of, the budgets are quite bad for comedy, even though there's we did some really interesting visual stuff. And then you do a row of police drama things, and you go, oh God, I don't want to do any more of that. So you sort of, and then you keep going back and forth, and kind of, in the end, I think it's like the quality of the script, the quality of the premise,
Sure. Yeah.
coupled with everything else.
One of the things that first of all, let me just say, we have a thing around these parts. It's called the IMDb 6-star rule. And we don't like to think in terms of ratings, in terms of what makes things watchable. But generally speaking, if it's 6 stars or above, it's going to be a great watch. It is rare to come across somebody's IMDb profile and have almost 100% of the collected works there, not just over 6 stars, but well over 6 stars, right? Somehow you have managed a collection of works that, for one reason or another, are considered by the people watching them as really, really good, right? There is some sort of alchemy there that causes your selections to be worth both contributing to and, as a viewer, sitting down and watching. I'm curious how you think about that. And because of your work, I mean, you are deeply invested in TV. We're in a really interesting era of small screen work. And as a side argument, we fight all the time about where the best work is happening in cinematography and screenwriting, and whether it's big screen, small screen. And how many times have we watched movies and said, this would have been great as a 6-part or a 10-part, right? How do you conceptualize your catalog of work that is, you're part of something really, really strong? What does that mean for you?
Oh, well, to be honest, thank you for saying that, because I've never, I hadn't considered that, to be honest. And completely honest here, I am my own harshest critic, and
Sure.
like many of us, I find it sometimes very difficult to watch what I've done, because I can always go, well, I could have done that better. I wish we'd done this and this. But thank you. I suppose I just try to pick things that I find interesting. That I try to pick things that are on their own merit good. So I'm not that bothered by genre. Like, it doesn't really matter to me what genre it is, as long as the sort of premise and the people surrounding it are interesting to me and will do interesting work. Whether that's cast, whether that's director, whether that's producer, writer, all of it. And I tend to be quite careful with, so I have a sort of a no, can I say dickhead? I'm sorry, I have a no
Sure.
dick.
Yeah.
I have a sort of a no dickhead rule, that I do my very best to not work with people who are difficult, or I want to have a good time. And it doesn't mean that it's easy, or there's no arguments, or there's nothing. It's just, it's a very sort of stressful job.
Yeah.
It's a, because there's a lot of pressure every day. You have to make the schedule, you have to do this. And so I try to pick people to maybe sometimes to my detriment, that I will pass on work that I know I'm going to have a constructive time with, a creative time with. Doesn't mean that we're always best friends, or it's not like that. It's just a professional kind of environment. And I suppose I hadn't thought about the sort of curation of the 6 stars or above, but that's great to hear. Thank you. And I've been very fortunate to work with some incredible directors who have been so supportive and interesting to work with. They're really kind of supportive on the visual and collaborating from the very start of the time I get onto a project to the end. So.
Well, let's. I want to. Speaking of all of that, I want to talk a little bit about The Girlfriend, the project that you've most recently worked on with Robin Wright, who is very deeply involved in this project to the point where she, executive produced it, directed the first 3 of 6 episodes, stars in it. As the mother in the story, and clearly was somebody who obviously had a vision and knew what she wanted to do with this particular kind of twisty, dark story about a relationship between a mother and her son's new girlfriend. And to that end, I want to talk a little bit with you about perspective and the way that you approach projects, particularly something like this, and knowing we're going to be talking about Mulholland Drive here in a little bit, because this is a story following Laura, Robin Wright's character, and also following Cherry, Olivia Cook's character of the girlfriend, and we're getting these conflicting sometimes perspectives of the two views of this, the way that the relationship is going between the mother and her son, and how she views this girlfriend. And let's just say they're from a very rich family, and then the daughter, who is not from a wealthy family, has a different perspective, and we're seeing both sides of that, and it affects how you choose to shoot the story, and how, and I'm sure you had many conversations with Robin about how to approach these sorts of things as you're looking at, okay, what are we seeing now that we're in Laura's eyes, or now we're looking at it through Cherry's perspective. How do you approach that when you're thinking about not just how the camera is working, but how is the camera working in relation to specific characters?
Well, so when I first met with Robin, we had a similar thing like this, like a Zoom. And then when we met in real life and started talking about it, she had a very clear idea about how the story needed to play out and how the characters were forming and sparking off each other and things like that. But she hadn't quite sort of landed on how she wanted the visual of that to be. And so I suppose what I started thinking about was what I brought, the idea that I brought to her very early was that I thought, because they are very two distinct perspectives, the camera cannot be neutral in a way where you maybe sort of see in a traditional kind of, and this is not disparaging or anything, it's kind of, but often you see thrillers and things, and you have, very simple example, you have 2 characters in a scene. They may be fighting, they may be talking, but they get the same sort of shots. They get, we get the wider shot, we get a profile shot, and then we get a matching over the shoulders or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And my pitch was to her, and I said, we should not have anything that is like that, as much as we can avoid it, because to my mind, to build the idea of, it basically starts from misunderstanding and not quite seeing, or not quite hearing, or mishearing. And for that, things needed to not to be super clear for everything. So if I'm in Laura's perspective, I see from more or less what she could see as a character in that scene. There's some shots where, the camera's explaining scenario stuff, but mainly it was all about being with her and seeing. And then conversely, when we switched to Cherry's perspective, the scenes that were sort of slightly rerun, that helped also, because then she could only sort of see and hear and overhear, and so that's how we came about that sort of language, I suppose.
Yeah.
And Robin really liked that, and we ran with that for the sort of the first 3 episodes, and then I sort of in the later episodes, which I did shoot, but brilliant. Paul Morris and Andrea Harkin did. That sort of structure had collapsed because of what happens at episode 3, and then this character spends a lot of time apart, so it becomes slightly more traditional, I suppose. But not in a. I don't mean that.
Not in a traditional sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fascinating tool that is employed in these first episodes, and it's just an example from the very first episode, which I think is downright riveting. That we see a shot in the beginning where Laura is surprised by sounds in the house, and we see then later when we change perspectives that the sounds in the house were coming from her son and from Cherry. There's a scene where we've already seen Laura walk into her closet looking for sounds, and now we reveal that Cherry is right behind the next corner. And that reveal, it not only does it totally change your perspective as it's supposed to on the original, but the camera has now made Laura, who we thought was the protagonist, the villain in the same episode. And that is awesome. What a fantastic tool to use the camera to completely change not just perspective, but ideology in the frame. I think it works incredibly well.
Well, thank you. That was actually planned, and that's a really.
It's good to know it works.
That's nice to hear. But yeah, we were. That's sort of part of what I was saying is sort of the camera in Laura's perspective only goes this far down the corridor, and you're with her.
Yeah,
and it's a bit scary. It's a big house, but then the tension's released. Oh, we think it's the cat. Blah blah. And then we come back to the same room in Cherry's perspective, and the tension's now switched, as you just described. And I think the camera is the same camera move, it just continues a bit further. And so it still stays in the same universe. We haven't invented any new wacky angles or anything. It's just, and so there was that sort of elegance that I was really, really hoping to get as much as I could, whenever I could.
Yeah.
Thinking of films like The Graduate, or things like that, where the camera is just incredibly elegant, descriptive, goes on forever, and as soon as you're with Mrs. Robinson, and the camera switches perspective in the scenes. Anyway, sorry, I digress. But it's kind of it was actually a great inspiration for me. I think the cinematography of The Graduate is just so overlooked. It's an incredible film to see just for the camera work on it.
Yeah, I always think about the pool scene with the cinematography in there. And perspective. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It is a comedy, but I don't know if you've seen it recently. But if you haven't, I would rescreen it. It's really cool.
His noise that he makes cracks me up all the time.
Totally. There is another thing that happens that is in common between The Girlfriend and The Graduate is fantastic home architecture. This house where they live is that must have been a playground for you. So much fun stuff to shoot.
Yeah, it was great. It was this huge townhouse in a very affluent London, central part of London, and the designer Neve Coulter, she just did an incredible job with it. But it looks fantastic. It was quite a challenge to work in, because various boring logistical aspects, because you can't go around the side of the house. Everything has to come through the house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had, quite big crane shots. We have to carry this like 45-foot hydroscopic crane or hydraulic crane through. It was like 20 guys. So
Moving at different speeds.
it was quite, a lot of that, but it was,
Yeah.
The
it's a beautiful
spaces
house.
are captured
Yeah.
perfectly.
Allows for a lot of play. I was thinking, like with the pool, how much fun you must have had playing with that, and just the different moods that you can create. The creepy moods, like is someone stalking her, like right out of the gate at the beginning, or
awesome,
or like the knife falling into the water. Like there was a lot of moments that I think you're allowed to play with there, which must have been a lot of fun.
It was.
I mean, come on. I don't know about you, Andy, but I have never stalked my mother like that in a pool while she's swimming laps. That is a degree of enmeshment that kickstarts this thing.
Yeah.
In a very dark way.
You're right.
Oh yeah, right from the bat. It's kind of, this is inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's not. It's weird. When they sit in the sauna after, and
right.
Laura's foot is resting a little bit too close.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's kind of, and I mean, obviously there is that thing where she's transferred her grief from a daughter that she's lost previously, to a slight obsession, and equally he's kind of quite happy to be in that space.
Yeah, Cherry says, "You're more of a mama's boy, aren't you?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." It's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
he knows it.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a fascinating story, the way that you get to kind of craft this, just these different spaces, and you get to build all this. I'm curious your approach, or just like how you're approaching something like this, working with someone like Robin, who is acting in it, but also is directing in it. Does that change the way that you approach things? Because I mean, we've talked to some people before who are like, well, certain people, you can only shoot them from this angle and things like that, or you don't want to shoot this sort of angle, or you need to use this lens. In a situation like this, where she's producing it, she's very much involved in all this, she's directing it and she's starring in it. How does that change those conversations?
I think they're very honest. I think but also in a very sort of easy way. Like, and then one thing, I mean, there's so many things about Robin that I admire, but she is not vain. But I mean, I think the only instruction she had for me, just, don't make me look 75. And she's 58, whatever. So that was it. And I mean, nothing on this project working with Robin I'd never experienced before. I'd never worked with such a big A-list actor, I think, and I never worked with an A-list actor as a director who was also the exec producer, who was also, I mean, she had so many different things to deal with.
Yeah.
But we just got on really well. And she's just really, once we nailed our approach in prep, and we shortlisted some scenes and we looked at all the references, and she's like, right, that's it, I got it.
Yeah,
I'm happy. You do that, and then I'll deal with this. And then obviously she was watching playback and watching the blocking and stuff like that. But usually, like all the great directors in my mind, every adjustment is really simple. It's like, instead of giving a long speech about why you're doing this, it's like she goes over to Olivia, would you mind just giving it, can you do this? And the camera's here, and Olivia's very aware and super cool. She's like, yeah, great. And there's little adjustments, and we shot it, and then we move on. And because she's also Robin's caliber of, she's been doing an actor for like 40 years or something, and instant switch on, instant switch off. So it was a unique situation. I mean, just getting to grips to the fact that I was working with her, someone I've seen on screen ever since I was, like mid-teens or whatever.
Sure.
Right.
And I still can't quite believe it. So,
Practical question. What goes into the discussion with Robin and team and your team around you doing the foundational visuals for this thing in episode 1? You stay on 2 and 3. What goes into your decision not to do the last 3 episodes? From that perspective?
well, I think it was just a question of schedule, really,
Okay.
because we had to shoot out certain locations for all the episodes at the same time. Episode 2, which is all set 99% in Spain,
Yeah. Right.
had to be shot at the end of the schedule.
Okay.
And because Robin is in all the episodes, me and the co-producer Marco Petrucco and Neve the designer, we went over to Spain once we wrapped up, so we could set up that episode while she was still working in the UK, because they had to shoot out those locations. So
they're shooting episode 4 or 5 while you're in Spain.
While you're doing that,
yeah.
Okay. Does that ever give you heartburn? Like, I feel like you're setting up the overall tone of this thing, and then we like Paul. Paul's great, but you are giving up your vision.
Yeah, I think it does and it doesn't. It's kind of like you have to trust the other filmmakers to sort of and Paul and Andrea are really lovely people, very thoughtful, very intelligent, and very sort of hardworking and prepared. And Paul was very keen to make sure that he sort of stayed within the boundaries of what we were doing. I mean, not within the boundaries, but sort of wasn't
within
suddenly
the world,
singing
for sure.
Because it can be. I have not really experienced it myself, but I do know of quite a few instances where someone sets up a show and then the next team comes along and then
has their way with it.
Everything is different.
Yeah, right.
And so it's a completely different show.
Yeah.
And because I've done loads and loads of middle blocks, end blocks before I started to set up my own shows, I'm always respectful of because I wouldn't want to come in to the girlfriend shooting 4, 5, and 6 and then change everything, because then the whole show suffers. It just becomes like a schizophrenic show, and it's sort of, and I've seen it. It's sort of like I'm sure you all seen like episodes where you go, what?
Yeah.
What's happening?
For sure.
What's going on here? Like, I was enjoying this world, and then suddenly it's like it's all crazy or completely different. So, yes, of course, the control freak in me would always.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Let's
talk about your
always want to sort of do everything from the beginning to end, but you have to sort of let go.
Yeah.
Like you said,
team sport.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's great to see when other people do things that you're like, oh, I never thought about that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's better than I would have done it. It's sort of got lots of positive upsides to it as well.
Sure. Well, let's use this opportunity to shift our conversation and move over to Mulholland Drive, the film that you picked, one of your favorites, directed by David Lynch. First question, just like, what is it that first drew you to this film? Were you already a David Lynch fan when you walked into this?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That
helps.
I sort of beat myself a little bit for suggesting this movie, because it is such a tricky one to analyze. But yeah, I'm a huge David Lynch fan. I'm very sad that he passed recently.
Yes.
But yeah, he's just a genius. And I think the first time I saw this film, It was out in 2001. I might have seen it in the cinema. Well, I don't know if it came over here to the UK. I saw it when it was out in the cinema,
Gotcha.
and
Gotcha.
and I was like, I was just blown away. I was absolutely terrified, laughing. Um, he's just a unique filmmaker. No one can do the things that does and get away with it.
Yeah, that's, I think, the thing that you really find
Fair.
as you're watching this. This definitely fits into kind of the mold of what you come to expect from a David Lynch film. It's not necessarily a straightforward story. It's a puzzle that we're kind of trying to assemble to figure out what is going on here. Who are these people? How do they relate? And that's what I find so exciting about just everything that David Lynch has done, is how there's like a dream quality to everything. And I don't want to say an incomplete quality, but just a quality that it's like the pieces are all there. It's just up to us to figure out how to lay everything together. And it's revisiting this I mean, I always enjoy seeing kind of like the naive Betty, Naomi Watts' character, as she comes to Hollywood and wants to be a star, and just so like big and dreamy and everything, and the way that all of that plays, and how all of that contrasts with what we are set up with, kind of a very dark story of Laura Herring's character, quote unquote Rita, because she's doesn't know her name, but her story, the film starts with her near assassination, as she's stopped with these people on Mulholland Drive, and then they're going to try killing her until a car crash causes them to all die, except she manages to escape just with amnesia. It's a fascinating setup, and now we have these two characters that inevitably are going to come into contact with each other, and trying to figure out with them what is Rita's backstory, what's going on, and then following Betty as she's trying to figure out how to make it into Hollywood. And this is all before we get to that last act of the film where everything shifts as we're kind of like sucked into the little box. It's a wild, wild puzzle of a tale. And I don't know, I feel like I change my theory every time I watch it,
I think that's the beauty of it, and I think for me, I have looked up in the past, like, this is what Mulholland Drive means or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And for me, it's not interest. That's not really the interesting thing to me. It's actually that it could be whatever you sort of, how you feel when you're watching that film, where you're watching it, because the sort of environment that you watch a film in has an impact. And I think, like, this, it is there's so many different things going on that it takes several viewings to sort of enjoy the little nods and the little kind of weird dissolves, and the kind of the sound design. The sound design is amazing. The score is amazing. Obviously, Peter Deming's cinematography is completely appropriate and amazing, and Jack Fisk's design, but it's all David, like, because I feel, because he's written it, he's directing it, everything. Like, I was rewatching it fairly recently, and there's just little things like when you come into Winkies the first time with what's his name, the actor called Patrick Fischler, I think.
Yeah.
And he's talking to this guy that you don't quite understand who is. He's like his therapist? And he's talking about, and the camera's just doing this really weird floaty thing, but it's really subtle. I don't think I noticed that the first time I watched it. And then I just watched it again recently. I was like, oh wow, that's it sort of floats, but it doesn't. And it's just really small, unsettling things. And I just, it's so, that's what I'm saying. It's a real rod to beat myself with to try and get into this film, because it is just mad. And beautiful and scary. Like when you see that hobo the first time,
Oh,
you
yeah.
Yeah.
with the tension. It's just two simple shots. It's Patrick Fischler walking his character, and he's clearly his angst is building, and you cut to his and he David Lynch just uses those really clean POVs a lot in this film.
Yeah.
You cut, you see, cut, and then this guy comes out, and I was like, the first time I saw it, I just remember jumping out of my skin completely.
Yeah. It's a terrifying moment.
Yeah, and he comes back at the end, and you sort of go, well, if it was all her dream, then what's he doing there?
Yeah.
So she's dead now. So yeah, I don't know. It's just it's an incredible weave of atmosphere, imagery, sound design, and I think Naomi Watts, her performance, she's an incredible actor. I don't know if she ever was better, in my view, because that's a tricky part to play, and
Oh, yeah.
she was just. It's like that scene when she has that really horrible, when she's breaking down and masturbate. I mean, it's just kind of, it's so much going on.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
Peter Deming is one of those that's interesting to me because I think, working with Lynch enough that there is a shorthand between them. Clearly, what we're watching is Lynchian, but there is something so fascinating about Peter Deming's work that when I watch this movie, I almost always think, oh, I guess you're allowed to do stuff like that and get away with it. And it doesn't make the movie any weirder than it needs to be. It's just you could do the slightly disconnected floaty camera and it works. There are things you're allowed to do that I've just never thought I was allowed to do until you kind of see somebody do it so beautifully.
well, exactly. It's like it shouldn't work,
Right.
but that's like David Lynch in a nutshell. It shouldn't really work, and I think in any other filmmakers, and it's no disrespect to all the incredible filmmakers out there. That's why I thought he was so unique, because he could cut from like really generic, almost soapy coverage.
Yeah. Right.
And then suddenly we're into some really weird stuff, and it works. And it's kind of the way he's casting it. I don't know. It's just it is a trip, basically. I think it's like you gotta. It's not if you can't watch any of his films and be slightly distracted, because then it just makes no sense, and you have no, and also then there's no enjoyment. You have to be completely focused on what you're watching. It's there's so many different techniques. There's crash zooms. There's lots of dissolves. There's very beautiful tableaus of Naomi Watts answering the phone is a really considered kind of, before I think it's been go down to Club Silencio, and it's interwoven with like this sort of quite surreal but very funny, shouldn't be funny, of this killer shooting this other sort of slightly sleazy guy, and then shoots through the wall, and there's this woman who gets shot, and she's, they're having a wrestling match, and then he has to kill her, and then he has to kill the guy who comes down with a hoof, and it's, I don't know, that's really funny, but it shouldn't be funny.
No, right. Well, that all, going back to like what we were talking about with the girlfriend and the nature of perspectives. And I think that's what's really interesting here, and what the way that Lynch is approaching it, because, we have Betty and Rita, these two characters we're following. Later, Naomi Watts is now Diane and Laura is now Camilla. And it's all because perhaps all of this has been kind of maybe in Diane's head, and it was kind of like a dream that she had. But as we're seeing all of these little bits and pieces, like the guy that you were just talking about, the guy who kills these people and takes this black book. We had way back at Winky's, there was also like we see him now with a woman who is a junkie, clearly, who's kind of working for him. Now, when we come to the later part of the film and we're following Diane, she's the junkie. And he is like the one who's kind of like hooking her up and having her help with stuff. And so it's like the perspective of everything in the first half of the film, 2/3 really, is like all shifted. But we're like, is everything that we've been seeing through Diane's like memories, through her dreams, like how is this all connected? And that's thinking about that, especially camera wise. How are we going to tell all this where it's really kind of like maybe this one person's perspective? And I find that really kind of fascinating.
Well, because I think he leaves it quite open as well. I mean, yes,
Truly.
there's some quite strong nods to it's about her kind of potentially could be about her dream being destroyed, her love, and how Hollywood sort of chews up. Then, if we go back to the girlfriend, she could not have witnessed the scene with the director and the mafia guys on the espresso.
Right.
No, right.
Which is one of the best scenes I think ever. I think it's just
Angelo Badalamenti as the mafia guy, like spitting his espresso out, is one of the funniest things. Truly,
and it's just like, what is going on here? You sort of, and you're clearly with. I've forgotten the director's character name. Is it? But the actor's name's Theroux, I think.
Yeah, Justin Theroux.
Justin Theroux. Sorry,
Adam is the director.
And you're suddenly with him, and he's like bewildered. What the hell's going on?
Right.
And so that should really have nothing to do with, with Betty. So I do think that's part of his thing. Is this like it's just a universe of maybe it's interwoven dreams, maybe it's an and I just it's like Lost Highway, or if you look at particularly the second season of Twin Peaks, which is wow. I mean, that gets really metaphysical.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I would never pretend to understand everything. I just enjoy it.
I think that's the way that you need to approach his stuff. Like Inland Empire, suddenly you're following rabbit puppets in a house. It's like, where am I now? What's going on?
I know. He was so unique.
I love it. Yeah.
You can see why there's this sort of internet catnip that all of David Lynch's stuff exists in the same universe. Because I want the rabbit puppets and the director to all be in the same universe. I want all that to unite somehow.
I mean, if that's my Avengers, yeah. Let's have that crossover.
Give
me that
between the rabbit puppets and Lost Highway.
Yeah. No kidding.
Do you? I mean, do you ever see yourself as somebody? I think you are being, perhaps falsely modest when you say I don't claim to understand anything, because I think part of your job is when you're working with things like this. I'll speak for you. You got to understand what you're shooting. You've got to understand everything what you're putting across. Do you ever get the sense that you want to take these inspirations, these things that you've carried since really the formative part of your career? This movie came out. It's been with you your career, and turn it into something, let's say, directorial?
There is a part of me that could sort of go, well, yes, I'd love to direct, but there is another part of me where I'm pretty sure I don't want to, because there's I suppose it's different if you're doing independent film, maybe, but when you're working in TV and maybe the bigger pictures, there's a lot of things there's a lot of people around that you need to negotiate with and explain things to, and I don't think I'm very good at that. I'm quite sort of simple in terms of And I'd love to maybe do a picture, a movie that is kind of imagery led, which would be such a cliche for a DP to do. But weirdly, that's not because I don't get on with actors. I love actors, and a lot of my cinematography in my reactive moments really feed off actors, what they do, how they feel, their energy, the way they're positioning themselves on the set, or the body language has quite a big impact on framing for me, and things like that. So, long-winded way of saying maybe, but I'm very happy being sort of down there below the line, doing the lights and camera.
Fair. Fair.
It's an easier life. Let's just say that.
Got it.
Well, to that end, do you look at films like this though, and just see what Deming did here and go, "That's interesting. How can I incorporate some techniques like that into an upcoming project?" Like, could a moment, let's just say, like the way that you had that little floating camera moment with the two at Winkies. Is there could that, and I know it's all project dependent, but are you actively always thinking about that could actually play interesting if I did something similar over here? Do you regularly look at films like this as inspiration?
Yes, because you're always trying to find a way of expressing what the emotion of the scene is. And quite often let's say you're trying to build tension in a scene, and quite often the go-to for some directors and some DOPs is, well, it's tense, so we need to go handheld. Right? That's the sort of
that's right. Yeah,
okay. Now we're tense, and I tend to disagree with that. Sometimes because I find it becomes a little bit too lazy. All right, now we're tense, so now we're handheld and we're in really close on everyone's faces. And so I do look at a film like this and I go, wow, what if we did this quite unsettling thing that we can't quite, if you're watching, you can't quite work out the first time what's going on. I would definitely, borrow from that and say, "Wow, look at my great thing." But it's just it's just having those conversations with directors. So, for instance, talking about tension, which was a big thing that we were talking about in The Girlfriend.
Yeah, right.
The reason why I was really advocating for sparser coverage is that I'm firmly in the belief of that you build tension by holding shots. Or you using inexorable kind of camera moves that sort of don't stop, but they're pushing you. So the moment you sort of start cutting away from something, you sort of take the air out of the balloon. So for me, if you're wanting to build tension, you hold a shot. It's like blowing the balloon up. Is it going to burst? Is it going to burst? Is it going to burst? Is it going to? No, it's still going.
Yeah,
and you start to sort of itch a little bit, and that's what he does in this film as well. He does these beautiful things where characters leave the shot, and he just focuses on like a box or something, but a little bit too long.
Yeah,
and you go, "What's that about?"
Right,
and your brain starts to work, and I just like that. I like giving the audience something for them to paint their own imagination on. I think we're getting fed too much and we're too needy. And in terms of, we've got to show everything all the time, cut to this, cut to that, cut to this. Don't be bored, And I feel maybe it's just me and my generation, or I'm too old. I don't know. But shots that hold, they really, they draw my attention in.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys feel.
Well, I'm actually really curious about that, because I think the other side of that coin is that there is a trend toward studios, I'll say writ large, studios, production teams, to trust audiences less now than ever before. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily see myself as a needy audience member. Maybe I'm like you. We probably have the same similar generation. And I feel like many of the projects I watch today I am not a trusted participant in the audience. They are shoveling stuff to me. They're not doing that thing that the things that Lynch was doing, the breaking of spatial continuity, the dramatic changing of entire lighting schemas mid-scene, right? Like a complete disregard for motivated movement in a given sequence. Like, who cares about that stuff? We're going to let the audience figure it out. I appreciate it when I'm trusted to figure it out, and I feel like we're edging away from that trend of trust. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it is a fair assessment, and it's kind of it's interesting that in a lot of early meetings, again, it's not all the time, but sometimes you have these sort of you go to meetings and the execs and the producers talking, oh well, we want it to be like this movie, we want it to be this TV show that is incredibly successful, brave, like Ozark or whatever it might,
Oh, for sure.
Which interestingly Robin directed quite a lot towards the end on. And Jason Bateman,
I was going to say Black Rabbit,
lovely.
That.
I love that.
I think that
such a wow.
That kid's going places, I think, is what we're saying.
Yeah, he may turn out to be all right.
He may turn out to be something.
Because even like the his pilot episodes on The Outsider, I think the TV show went. It could have done with maybe 4 fewer episodes.
Yeah.
But his visual style is, and Robin really she really embraced that on Ozark. I remember her talking about it. But yeah, I think that the frustrating thing sometimes can be that there's sort of the reference shows or films that are told to you at the beginning of the process, and you get really excited. There's a sort of nervousness that kicks in, and it takes. And I understand it. It's like because of this brutal environment of algorithms and.
Sure.
It's a rough time right now, for sure.
It is really hard. So it's really having that nerve as a decision maker to go, no, this is what we're sticking with, because I'm also a firm believer in, if you show confidence in your material as a filmmaker, as a TV, as a creative, that will show through to the audience, and you'll settle in and go, right, these guys know what they're doing. I'm gonna go with them on this ride.
Yeah.
If you start to jump around too much and trying to sort of show shiny things in the first 5 minutes, that may work. But for me, it can be like, oh, they're really trying to oversell me here. I doesn't feel like this is going to be anything great. Just like one TV show. Sorry if I'm babbling, but there's
no, you're good.
The Old Man with Jeff Bridges. I don't know if you've seen it.
Sure,
I haven't seen that one, but yeah.
And whatever. It's a good show, but visually, some of the episodes are just incredible. And they really play with the idea of it's equally important what you don't see as what you see, and things like that. So.
Well, and the other, we talk about like the playground of shooting in this crazy house. The playground of Jeff Bridges' face is extraordinary. Like, what incredible joy to capture what that guy's got going on. It's a work of portraiture as much as it's a work of
but also TV. Let him play in a like the opening shot of the show, which is basically him getting up to go and have a wee at night.
Yep.
It's extraordinary. Yeah. And as an actor, I think he really enjoyed that, because he had to play. It's like doing a slightly theatre thing, or a film that he did in the 70s, where all my favourite films pretty much come from that era, where That's the shot. You come and go as you like, but that's where the camera
That's
is.
where it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting
pretty
because you mentioned trust, and I think that, going back to David Lynch and everything, like he's a director who, I mean, when Twin Peaks was on the air, the network wasn't so sure about it, and it didn't last for very long. And he had a career. It wasn't like an incredibly extensive career, but he was always making interesting things. He would always make things that, like, he would find the right people that would trust his vision to let him do what he needed to do to film this story in the crazy way that he did. And that went all the way through. And that's really the only reason that we ended up having Twin Peaks: The Return the way we did, is because he had proven himself as somebody that he could be trusted to bring a vision that people would enjoy. His films weren't always great money makers, but they were always incredibly fascinating experiences, and definitely would draw people in. And I think that's what we ended up with. The return of Twin Peaks is something that truly was his vision, and a great way to kind of wrap everything up with that. And that's what we get here. It's very much a man who is trusted to allow, like, they allowed him to just tell this crazy story the way that they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could have not been told. I mean, I'm sure he could have told it in different ways, but no one else could. I don't think anyone else could have taken that script and gone and gone anywhere near it, because I think it's almost impossible to interpret his intentions, because they're so unique. His instincts.
No one else would have had the little old people crawling under the door.
No, no, and even, I mean, it's just the opening sequence of that, sort of when she's dancing on that purple background, and
right.
and just the couple she arrives with, and then we just see them in the limo, having this sort of fantastic time, and it's never explained.
No, right,
and you go, that's great. What happened to them?
Yeah,
and it's great. Yeah.
So crazy. Well, Mattias, it has been so much fun chatting with you about your career, The Girlfriend, Mulholland Drive. Thank you so much for being here and joining us on the show. We really appreciate it.
For sure.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this. Sorry if I've been I get quite. It's interesting how you get slightly animated sometimes.
No,
when you talk about it. It's been real fun, and as I was saying before we came on air, like, to do this with the caliber of people that you have had on, is a real thank you very much for that. That's
we're thrilled.
It's our honor. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the great work.
Be a part of it.
Thank you. So,
do you have places online that people can go to learn more about you and see what you're up to?
I'm MattiasNyberg.com. I'm on Instagram, not always that much, but I'm at Cinema Eyes, as in eyes, all one word, at Instagram. That's about it, really. Excellent. Obviously on IMDb, but who looks at that apart from you guys?
Well, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll put all those
answered.
That's right. Well, we'll put all the links in the show notes. Again, thank you so much. For everyone else out there, we hope you enjoyed the show, and we certainly hope you like the movie like we do here on Movies We Like. Movies We Like is a part of the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network and the Next Reel family of film podcasts. The music is Chonk Clap by Out of Flux. Find the show at truestory.fm and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Letterboxd at The Next Reel. Learn about becoming a member at thenextreel.com/membership. And if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we always appreciate it if you drop one in there for us. See you next time.